Well, good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right, Gigi, give me the word of the day. Say something good that we can start our class off with.
Fun.
Okay, we are going to have some fun today because I brought some of the best, amazing city employees that you have here at Deltona today. We are going to talk about planning, we're going to talk about the building department, and we are going to then roll into human resources, and they're going to come later on in the morning. So real quick, I'm just going to kind of call people out. Raise your hand. If you everybody want to look in the back, standing up now is Dave, our new building official. Welcome, Dave. Next to him is Kat. Kat manages the front end of the building department. And then we have Joe, who is our head of the planning department. Denelia is the manager of the planning department. And we have this young man right here. This is Jonathan. Jonathan just joined our team in the last 3 weeks, and he is a planner. He's an entry-level planner, and he will be taking the lead and learning from the great people that we have in that department. So last week we talked about code enforcement. Do you remember something about code enforcement? What's one thing?
Just try to keep Deltona beautiful.
Okay, yes. Our code enforcement division does try to keep Deltona beautiful. Zach, what did you take away from last week?
I took away that there's quite a lot of ordinances in place. Isn't quite a lot of code to enforce. And it's quite impressive that your code enforcement is able to keep up and manage with all that. So I found that quite interesting.
Okay. And that's true. We have 14 officers and 41 square miles that we have to cover, so we do our best to keep it beautiful. So Zachary, the gentleman that stood up, Joe, that's the guy you might want to talk to at some point. Zachary kind of has a future maybe in planning, so he would love to hear from you. And just walking in is Danny. Danny is our code compliance manager. He was not with us last week when we talked about code compliance, but he wanted to kind of check us out today. So welcome, Danny. What I'd like to do now is call up the planning department. Joe, come on down, Denelia, or however you guys are going to do it. It's fine. I'll let you take the podium. I'll be in the audience here for questions. Welcome, Joe. It should be. Is it on or not? Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Good morning, Citizens Academy. Good morning to the citizens and residents that are here today. Joe Ruiz, as Suzette mentioned, Planning Director for the City of Deltona here. I'm glad and happy to be here today with you all and to be able to share with you the essentially day-to-day and inner workings of the Planning Department here to you all. We are here to serve you all. We are here to serve our city and to advance our city, and for planning purposes, for growth management purposes, and to be, safeguard our infrastructure, safeguard our land development and the applications and everything that comes in through our office and eventually gets built. So just to kind of run you through here, we have a mission statement that is on our city website. And I wanted to highlight a few things on this mission statement here, a couple items. We're here to serve the citizens, as mentioned. Currently, and I'll have an organizational chart for you all to see, we do everything from the land development, land use applications, as well as zoning. Most recently, we've been working a lot with Suzette, Kat, and David to streamline, make things more effective, make the point of contacts a little more direct, so that when you are coming in for permits, coming in for sheds, fences, chickens, per se, Jim, right? To be able to have that available to you, and so that the answers are concise, the answers are consistent, and so that we're through and throughout the whole process, and that clear information is given and provided to our residents. And so our goal is to serve the citizens. And I say we, that is not French, that is in English. I myself also am a citizen and a resident of Deltona, proud to say. So I do take this with pride, right? This is important to me here. Not only am I an employee, but I also am looking to safeguard this community as well. As Suzette mentioned today, I do have with us Denelia Santana. She's the Planning Department's longest standing employee. She's been with the city for about 23 years. I'll let her introduce herself in a little bit. And then we also have Jonathan Knight, who is our latest addition to the planning department. So kind of wanted to give you a feel of the most seasoned employee as well as the latest addition. So, and also give Jonathan a good experience to kind of see what we're doing here with the Citizens Academy, where we're trying to be open, give information, let you guys know what we do on a day-to-day and how important it is to us. Also, as mentioned, the department exists for the purposes of effective planning for the future. So we do plan for today, but we also plan for tomorrow, right? We implement code, as mentioned by Suzette. You all learned about code enforcement. Code enforcement enforces code. However, we in planning, we implement code. So when plans come in, applications come in, what our goal is to make sure that all those plans meet the criteria of our land development code. Many people see the Code of Ordinances and they think, well, that's the code. Well, yes, it is the Code of Ordinances, but it also is broken down into the Land Development Code section of it, which is Chapter 74 and up. And so that is what the Planning Department safeguards. Most recently, we've, as mentioned, taken over zoning. We've also taken over business tax. So Chapter 22 also is more so part of our safeguarding as well. So just to kind of give you an organizational chart, my position reports directly to the city manager. And then we have assistant director position that we're seeking to fill. Dean Elliott, who's the planning manager. We have a planner 2. We have a couple planner 1s looking to fill our GIS analyst position. The GIS position, what it is our mapping. So it's a role, it's a position that maps, essentially keeps up with our zoning map, our future land use map, as well as any other trackings that we've got to do for any state legislation that comes out, i.e. community residential homes, bars, liquor stores, things of that nature that have distance requirements. So what we do is we try to track all those to make sure that there's no conflicts with neither our land development code nor state statutes.
Joe, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a planner 1 and a planner 2?
So planner 1, planner 2. Planner 1 is kind of the entry-level planner. So as you see, Jonathan, who's kind of just coming into government and learning the ins and outs of the planning. Planner 1 will be reviewing site plan applications, lot combos, lot subdivisions, reviewing the short-range planning side of things. So then a planner 2 is a little more seasoned. I'll get into it. So we have both short-range and long-range planning. Short-range is the day-to-day applications that we receive and also our land development code. Then we have a long range, which is our comprehensive plan, which is our kind of 7 to 15 to 20-year plan that we have. And so there's a little more in-depth review and thinking, analytical thinking as far as from the city side when it gets into that long range side of it. So thanks for that question, Suzanne. So I got on here planning for today and tomorrow, said any planner ever. Right? We're looking at plans today as well as thinking about tomorrow. You know, when I was preparing this presentation, things were coming to mind like, you know, how do we review plans? How do we look at that stuff? And so, for example, when somebody comes in with an application, let's say they say, hey, I want to overpark my site, or I want to have less parking. Well, part of that is I'm a proponent of less asphalt. The more open space we can preserve, I'm very supportive of that. We do have land development codes that require a certain amount of parking, right? And so with that, do they meet the minimums? And if they're over parking, you know, what can that site be in the future? Let's say that business doesn't succeed, or if it were to become vacant, right? So we've also have to think about those items and say, okay, like you've seen on Providence, there was the O'Reilly's per se that was recently reconstructed or built. Right, that O'Reilly's there is the third building that has gone on that site. I don't know if you know or not, right? So there was a office building, and there was a bank building, and now there's an O'Reilly's there. And so we've had to work with them to kind of reconfigure that site. Unfortunately, they weren't able to salvage the building, but they put a new building up. And so we were able to work with them within the parking calculations, get a little creative, but make sure that it's all justifiable and that it all meets our code, right? That it meets the straight face test, so we can say we properly planned for this and we properly were able to get them open, running, and started. And so those are just items that we look through. We also have our planning coordinator who kind of keeps the calendar, keeps the development review committee committee things going. We have our business tax specialists, which many of you who have local businesses know. We have our zoning technician who reviews the permit side of things, new single-family homes, and then we also have our administrative assistant. So just wanted to go through the land development review process. What we review is land development and land use applications. So on the right side there, on the slide there, you'll see we review everything from comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, rezonings, site plan applications, subdivisions, conditional uses, variances, and zoning reviews. Typically, these are broken up into two, right? Land development is what's going to be built at the moment. So you're looking at your subdivisions, your site plan applications, and then when it gets into land use, which is more policy driven, we're looking at your comprehensive plan, which is our blanket document. It's kind of our roadmap, our goals, objectives, and policies, which we are currently in the process of working on, and we have a consultant that is going to be looking into our comprehensive plan. And so just so you all know, on a 7-year basis, every municipality in the state of Florida has to revisit that comp plan. Whether changes are made or not, that's up to the municipality to determine. However, we have to either way report to the state what our goal or what our plan is to update that. It's an effective tool because that tool makes us be able to hit targets, right? Sometimes in the policies, goals, objectives, policies will have dates. By such and such date, the city shall have this or shall accomplish this. And so it allows us to revisit and say, okay, commission body, okay, staff, where are we with this date, right? We've said we would have this done by such and such date, and is it accomplished? And so if it's accomplished, we check it off, we reevaluate the policy, and we move forward. If not, then maybe we push it back, and we evaluate what we're doing, and also provide a justification to the Department of Economic Opportunity to say, this is why we're going to update it, or this is why not.
Joe, we have a question.
Yeah.
Where is Deltona on that 7-year time frame?
On the 7-year time frame, so we have to notify Department of Economic Opportunity by October of next year, of 2024. And then within that year, we have 1 year to then make those updates if we notify them that we are making updates. So we have up to October of 2025. If we're not making any updates at that time, then we have to provide them with a justification as to why not, and notify them that we are not going to.
So, Joe, because I'd like to circle back with this group to, as we've been going over the course of the weeks, how everything tentacles out. You do a lot of work with the city clerk's office, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so things like this, when you're reviewing your comp plan, you have to take that in front of the city council at some point?
Yes, it goes in front of the city commission, and so with the EAR, which is the evaluation appraisal report, which I'm saying is that 7-year cycle for the comprehensive plan, and as well as with our land use applications. Anything that goes before the city commission, we have to get with the city clerk so that that's properly advertised, right? And a lot of our work and a lot of our codes are actually consistent or have to be consistent with state statutes. And so if anybody wants to write this down, Chapter 163 of Florida statutes, am I correct in that, Leon? Thank you, is essentially the municipality's framework that the state sets out. And so there it establishes local planning agencies, it establishes the city councils and commissions that cities have to have, as well as other requirements. And it also lays out the development review process as how it should be by the state, and then we have to adopt policies, regulations, and land development to be able to work with that. But with the city clerk question, yeah, we definitely have to post public ads and legal ads to the newspaper. For those of you who have lived near some of these applications, you've probably got a mailer in the mail saying, hey, there's going to be a public hearing on such and such date if you have any interest to come out. And so that's all part of the legal process to the city clerk that we have to work through to be able to get those and meet those deadlines. So if you ever see staff posting orange signs, wave at them. They're doing their job. And we're doing it, trying to do it in a timely manner as well as in accordance with our code.
What's the timeline? How long does it have to be posted?
So it has to be posted 10 business days prior to that hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But on a staff level, per se, that takes a little longer because we've got to get it to the clerk. The clerk's got to vet it, and then they got to send it to the newspaper for availability. So,
Another question, Joe?
yeah.
Just curious. I've seen these signs you're posting, and it's like typeface is like this big, and it's on a road, which means if you, nope, what was that?
Right.
You know, I mean, there's no room to park your car and get out and read it.
Right.
Can there be a way to make them, I don't know, more accessible to the neighborhood that it's going to impact so we can actually stop and read it?
Right. The way our code is currently written, it has a certain size that the sign has to be. The very specificity, I think 22 by 28 is what it's currently at. It's a little harder for staff to do that in the sense of when you've got bigger signs, you've got to have the proper post, because if not, David's going to go out there and tell us, hey, Joe, you got to stabilize that sign, right, David? But in other municipalities I've worked for, what they've done is they've had I want to say, 8x4 kind of sign with post. We are looking into possibly changing our public notice code to put the onus and the responsibility on the developers that are actually proposing this, so that it's on them and that they have to meet that timeline. So that is definitely something that, yes, it would be on their responsibility. So that's something that we can venture into and see if we can implement.
You could do the burn shade, you could just do like signs along as you're driving.
Oh, like a little bit of words on each sign that takes you to the end there. So, but that's interesting that you might be changing that, Joe, because again, to me, it sounds like then there's some cost savings and some
Yes.
time savings on your staff.
Yeah.
You put it back on the property owner, so it sounds like a neat way to head.
Yeah, and that's kind of the direction we're going in. So like I said, I've seen it done in different ways. A little bit about me, I've worked for 4 different municipalities. I've got about 10 years of experience in planning. So I've seen the different dynamics, different codes, requirements. And so I worked back here in 2016, 2017 as a planner 2, left for Orange City, and then the city drew me back in to come back. And so I've had the opportunity to come back and come back in a place and in a position and with a staff that we have the opportunity to make some good changes for the city and also for our residents. So that's one of our main goals, is to get that updated. So just the land development and land use application process. So we are responsible for the acceptance, the transmittal, and review of all land development and land use applications. So as mentioned, anything from site plans, anything from rezonings, subdivisions for new platted subdivisions, we receive all that here in planning, all those applications. And so what we do is when we receive those, we first initially start with a sufficiency review. That sufficiency review is a 7-day business day period where we make sure that they have all their submittal documents. We make sure that they have all their ownership documents, right? So that somebody's not just coming in, oh, I want to develop this site. They've never even talked to the owner, right? And so the owner signs off on that. If they are under contract, sometimes the applicant is the owner. So it all depends on the dynamic of that application. Once all that sufficiency review period gets taken care of and that 7-day period is over, if there are deficiencies, we send it out to the applicant within that time frame and let them know, hey, we still need this, that, and the other before we can move on with your application. The moment that the application is complete, we then send it out to what's known as our Development Review Committee. Development Review Committee consists of ourselves in planning, consists of the fire department, so the fire reviewer looks at those plans, consists of our building department, our building official, consists of public works and engineering. And so what we do is when these applications come in, it's not through a vacuum. It's not just the planning department that makes those determinations or does that review. No, we do it as a whole body so that all the items that go into developing a site are looked at, are evaluated, are reviewed, and then if we have any concerns or comments, we send that out to the applicant. And so we've got 20 business days to go ahead and do that review period.
So there it goes again for our participants. It tentacles out to all those other departments. And also, I think right now we don't have an economic development manager, but you also had that person as part of your team, correct?
Yes. Yeah, Jerry Mays, for those who knew Jerry Mays, he was part of the Development Review Committee as well and would ask very good questions whenever these applications came in as far as on the economic development level. So yeah, those come in. Contrary to popular belief, we staff do not have control over property rights or what people propose, right? A lot of people say, oh, they think, oh, the city can, why don't we build this here, build that there? Well, part of that is there's property rights. And so if a person owns a specific property and it's zoned for that specific zoning, then there's a list of uses. And so they can come in and say, hey, Joe, hey, Denelia, hey, Jonathan, I own this site. This is the zoning. I want to do, if it's C1, let's say I want to do a hotel or I want to do a business park or business office. Well, what we do is first we check that list on the zoning. If it meets the zoning, then they can move forward with a site plan application. If it's a vacant lot, if it's an existing site, then they can repurpose that site for that use. So there are property rights. Our hands are limited in the sense of when the zoning applies, then that is what we review that under. And so the same with our goals, objectives, policies, and our land development code. If it's in black and white, then that's something that we've got to enforce. If it is to the availability and provided to that developer or to that landowner, then that is their right to be able to exercise that. And so what we do is we don't plan what, we plan how. And so when I say we plan how is we make sure that they have proper parking, proper infrastructure, that they have proper landscaping to be able to develop that site per our code. And so if they are going to do a certain use, to make sure that it meets our standards and so that it is also safeguarding our community for the safety, public welfare, and the benefit of our community.
Here we go.
You said you don't plan what, you plan how.
Right, when it comes to private properties. Yeah.
Who plans what?
So we do plan what when it comes to a large overall scale, right? So when it comes to the framework of our city, when it comes to the comprehensive plan, the policies, goals, objectives, we do plan that as a city as well as with the input of our residents and the city commission. Now, when I say that we don't plan what, is more so on a site specific, right? So let's say somebody owns 2 acres of land, they want to develop that. They say, Joe, my property is owned for a dentist office, I want to do a dentist office. So now they're planning that what on that site based on what's provided to them through the city's zoning code. And then what we do is we plan with them on the how as far as how they're going to develop it, where their access points are going to be, where the landscaping is going, how the parking is going to be developed, and things like that. Hopefully that clarifies that a little better.
Yeah, I just, there's a lot of rezoning going on.
Yes, and so with the rezonings, we're more involved, and we have more say. That obviously the residents have more say, and so does the city commission. And so with the rezonings, what that is more of a contractual. Whenever they're doing these plan unit developments, so I know plan unit developments sometimes have overcast. People see them and they're not that good. Well, actually, with the plan unit developments, we actually have a little more detail that goes into them, and it's very site specific in the sense of we can write things into that specific plan unit development that they have to commit to, and it's a commitment between them and the city. And so we're able to kind of narrow things down, pinpoint things, and make it a little more specific other than what our code kind of allows. So, right, our code can't plan for everything, right? Even you think on a daily basis, we can never plan for the unexpected. And so when we go into the evaluation of these properties, when we finally see the surveys and the topography and things of that nature, then we can kind of get a better feel of how that site can actually develop and how to safeguard both that site as well as the adjacent properties.
About how long is a rezoning process for an applicant?
That's a very good question, Suzette. It really depends on the quality of the submittal. Typically, we're looking at 6 months is a good marker. A lot of it has to do with both staff time, staff availability. I'm proud to say that we have been staffing up. So a lot of those concerns as far as timing and stuff like that from the development side of things have gone down. I haven't really heard many complaints on that side of it. But it's about a 6-month process, and part of that time frame is because of those public notices, right? So when it comes to rezoning and comprehensive plan amendments, it has to go through the Planning and Zoning Board first, and then it goes to City Commission because it's via ordinance for 2 hearings. So you've got 3 hearings there, and so alone just in public hearings, you're looking at 2 to 3 months. And so the review process, if it's a good submittal and there's quality to it, then that's usually about a 3 to 4 month review process.
Your Planning and Zoning Board, is that something that a resident could go and listen in on?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's the 3rd Wednesday of every month. Obviously, it depends on application submittals and agenda items. If there are no agenda items, then we don't have those meetings. But if there are agenda items, then they're at 6 o'clock every third Wednesday of every month. And then the city commission meetings, which you've probably heard and many of you know about, are the first and third Monday of every month. So. DRC, like as mentioned, does involve interdepartmental review. So as I mentioned, all those departments look at that. We review that. We put it through our quality assurance and control, and we make sure that those plans are meeting the data, the required code requirements. Once DRC does approve it, they have to go to a DRC meeting, which typically are held the first and third Thursdays of every month at 9 a.m. We take these administrative applications, such as site plans and subdivisions, and then we, as a body, if they're good to go, we approve them, and we issue development orders for those. If anybody wants to know where this is outlined in our code, it is Chapter 74 of our Land Development Code, if anybody wants to make a note of that. So part of the review criteria that we look at, just to keep it in brief, we look at compliance with all aspects of the comprehensive plan and land development code. Those are the two bodies of work that kind of structure our day-to-day work, what we look at and how we do it. And so there's 3 C's to planning. There is concurrency, there's consistency, and there's compatibility. So with the concurrency side of it, we verify that the levels of service requirements are being met for school capacity, environmental capacity, utilities, and transportation concurrency. So with these submittals, we look at our roadway network, we look at the traffic impacts that it may have, we look at the environmental impacts that it may have on sites. Has the school board issued a concurrency certification or a reservation? And then we also work with our public works and engineering to make sure that utilities are in and available for that site. We also verify for consistency of the comprehensive plan and the land development code, as mentioned, and then we verify for compatibility of surrounding properties and areas. Is it compatible with the neighborhood that's next door? Is it a good transition? Is it transitional? Is it an abrupt change to the environment or to the community? And so we consider all those factors when we're doing our reviews. Any questions on that? Nope. Just wanted to kind of give you guys a brief list of what we're currently working on. So our planning staff is busy. We are having to update several items within our code. And you may ask, why is that? Well, part of it is commission direction. Part of it is citizen input, as Jim and I have worked on the chicken ordinance and how we're changing that. And then also a lot of it, too, has to do with state statutes. Many statutes that get passed, Suzanne and I are currently looking at Live Local. They preempt local municipalities on what they can enforce, what they can do, and how they can regulate. And so, for example, with the mobile food dispensing vehicles, food trucks, state passed a couple years ago the occupational freedom ordinance, which pretty much said you cannot prohibit food trucks within your municipality or within your city. And so we've obviously drafted ordinance on that. Currently, staff is working on updating that ordinance per the direction of the commission. As mentioned, we're updating our chicken ordinance. Public notices, as I kind of briefed you on. Also fences. Fences has been a big topic that has come from citizen input and citizen concerns. The commission has given guidance on that. Home-based businesses. That is another state statute-driven code change that we've got to do. Currently, our code has a home occupation code that is out of compliance with that state statute that was passed a couple years ago. And so we've got to bring that up to date to make sure that we're compliant with the state. Have a question, Jim? Or no? Medical marijuana dispensaries, for example, that was a big topic years ago. Our code changed in 2014 to make it a conditional use. Well, statutes changed a couple years ago, stating that we cannot regulate them any more than pharmacies. And so the conditional use regulation no longer applies due to state statute. So that's something that we've got to update in our code to keep up with.
Joe, have you seen those come into our community here lately?
There have been not so much dispensaries. We've gotten inquiries on them. What we are seeing is a lot of hemp stores and things like that, which was being regulated by DBPR. And so actually there's a new bill that I have to get into and review on hemp stores and hemp and Delta 8, I believe it is. And so the state has written a bill on that recently that goes into effect July 1st. So that's something else that we're looking at as well. Short-term rentals, things like Airbnbs, there are state statutes on that as well. So we're going to have to look at our code and reevaluate, make sure we're consistent with that. Accessory structures and metal building requirements, we're possibly going to be looking at making tweaks to that or revising that. And then multifamily standards. And so this list is not a priority list. It's kind of just a list of what we're looking at. In regards to multifamily standards, just so you all know and how our roles change and our priorities can change very quickly, the state has passed what's known as the Live Local Act. And so the Live Local Act is to allow for easier processing of affordability and affordable home projects for multifamily and things like that. And so now with a city as ours that is underserved by commercial services, industrial services, essentially that bill allows them to go into commercially zoned sites, industrially zoned sites, submit a site plan application, have the maximum densities and things like that. So now we're kind of looking at the state statute and going, okay, we've been preempted on this, our hands are tied, but how can we protect our city, right? And obviously not break the law or try to override the state, but how can we create measures that protect us as a city to say, okay, this is what the state has written, this is what we've got to abide by, but here are the standards that we want to see with these developments that come in.
Right, and that bill is 102, because
Yes.
I know some of you are taking some notes. If you want to look it up, it's State Bill 102. And it gives us benchmarks, does it not? That
does.
we have to reach certain things that we have to provide to the community, to the developers at certain timeline.
Absolutely, it sure does, yeah. And so, for example, by October 1st of this year, all counties and local municipalities have to provide a list of viable, affordable housing, publicly owned properties, per se. And so there are things that we're required to do with that bill.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes for planning. I'm just giving you a little timeline.
So some long-range planning efforts, just to sum up here, as I talked about short range and long range, we have the 2025 evaluation and appraisal report for us to look at our comprehensive plan. We have our public scoping and outreach, which is going to kind of go in tandem, hand in hand with that, with our consultant, Access Engineering. So they will be looking at these documents, doing an overall evaluation, looking at our infrastructure, and then eventually doing public outreach and workshops for the public to be able to provide input and provide some visioning for our community and our city. And then also what staff is working on, whether it is going to be in-house or whether it's going to be a joint effort with the county and our other local municipalities, such as Orange City and the land. We want to take a look at our activity center and do a transportation study within that area to see how the traffic patterns are looking, do a modeling, and see whether the infrastructure that we have as well as the county has is suitable for all the development that we're seeing within the Halifax area, within the Deltona Village area, along Normandy, Graves, and Howland. So that's kind of a summary of what we do, what we're looking at, what's kind of on the horizon, and any questions?
I have a question, Joe. What would you say is your biggest challenge in the planning department?
Our biggest challenge is partially our community, as originally planned, was a bedroom community, right? We can't hide our history as far as how we were designed, how we were developed, and how we were planned. And so we have a ton of residential, which all of us in this room who are residents live right to our left and to our right. We've got single-family homes, typically. And so one of the biggest challenges is redevelopment and finding areas where commercial makes sense, right? And so we all love our homes, we all like our homes, and so not everywhere is a place where we can stick commercial or we can stick restaurants or businesses, but it's finding those opportunities to provide where they're viable, which the areas that are still undeveloped, as well as possibly locating areas that would be viable for redevelopment in the future to kind of infuse into our communities.
Beautiful. Troy?
Thanks. I want to go back to the SB 102 a little bit. You mentioned that it has a lot to do with affordable housing, and we heard from Angelia in her barn last time. And I'm curious what numbers your department from planning and zoning uses when you look at affordable. When she mentioned there's a rental matrix for how much rent should cost for a certain household size and 30% for mortgages. What is it that your team looks at when they determine if a development is going to be quote unquote affordable housing?
Yeah, so that's actually the Angelia's team, what they've got and what they're going by, because a lot of this bill, the Senate Bill 102, is sale and ship funds, funding that's funding that. So a lot of what the state has as the medium income and things like that. So essentially what Angelia is provided by the state is what we're looking at as far as what they have to propose. And so part of that bill is if it's 40% affordable units, which falls in line with that AMI and that range of that bracket, then essentially there obviously is going to have to be, we're going to have to establish how they prove that to us. But if it meets that bill, then essentially that's how we're going to have to look at that.
Very good. How about one more question? Anybody? One more question. Come on, we got the head of planning here. Come on, Jim. What do you think?
Don't be shy.
Jim's got one. I knew it.
Okay, back to 102. Are we looking at county or city average income as basing for affordability? I wasn't quite clear on what you were saying there.
So it's based on what the state provides. I haven't seen, I know the state updates it every so often. I think it's because it's on a state level. I can't remember if they break it down by county, but whatever SHIP kind of sets out for that year, for this year of 2023, then we would have to go by those brackets, based on the number of individuals in the family, in the household, and that that very low, and median kind of incomes.
Okay. Beautiful. Let's give Joe a round of applause in the planning department. We thank you very much. So as we call up the building department, Kat and Dave are going to come up, but I'd like to ask Danny to come up real quick because he did not get a chance to say hello, and just to tell you a little bit about himself and why he serves this community.
All right, good morning, Citizen Academy. My name is Danny Ron, co-compliance manager for the city of Deltona. I'm also a resident here, and I take pride in what I do at this job, and all my constituents here in the city, because this is our community. I want it to look good. I'm part of the city, and that's why I'm doing this position here. I'm a new manager for the department, but I've been as a code enforcement officer for 20 years, so I've been here for a while. At this time, any questions? I know I wasn't here, I wasn't available last week, but I'm here right now today. If anybody has any questions, maybe something they missed last week.
Here, you take that mic, I'll get this. Sure. Just one question, Jim.
I love it. She restricts me already. You're code enforcement, correct?
Yes.
Okay, does that count?
Yes, you're done.
Okay. When you go out and inspect, or let's say you go to visit Troy here, is it because somebody complained about something he did, or because you noticed something on a drive-by?
Our officers are out there, good question. Our officers are out there reactively by complaint-driven, or proactively. They're already out in the community. These officers not just also do code enforcement, but they're also animal control officers, animal control certified by the state of Florida, and we also do the solid waste portion of it, which we kind of keep an eye on the Waste Pro, because they do our collections throughout the city, and we kind of keep an eye on that, making sure everything gets picked up in a timely manner. But with code enforcement, it could be by a complaint-driven or proactively. While they're out there, they see it, they'll stop. Now, I go driven throughout the city, and I'm like, I see that, I see that. What I do is I take notes, because I might not have the time at the moment to stop at every house to address something, but I'll take notes and get it back and put it into the system, so I have a reminder to get out there, at a timely manner to address the violation. Now, if it's an immediate health safety issue, I'm hoping my guys are doing what they're supposed to, because this is what we stress on them. Hey, stop before you move on, because we need to address those situations right away.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So we're talking 22 years of experience, right?
20 years.
20 years. Well, we thank you, Danny, and let's give him a round of applause. Great job.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
So at this time, Kat, who runs the front end, which is, I won't steal her thunder, I'm not going to tell you what she does, she's going to tell you, and Dave, our new building official who joined us in April. Welcome.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Kat Kipp. I've been with the city for 13 years in various different positions. I started at the utility department as their customer service supervisor. I also worked in planning for about 9 years. And now I'm in this role for about 1.5 years as a customer service supervisor for building and code compliance. And this is David. He's our newest building official. Go ahead.
Good morning.
You got it, red button. On the bottom.
Is that better?
We can share.
We'll use this mic.
Here, no, here, I'll look at it. You gotta hold it in. There you go. Go ahead, Dave.
My name is David Meyer, and as Suzette said, I am the new building official. I'm 2.5 months in here, but I bring with me 7 years of experience as a building inspector in Polk County, and I also have 30 years of experience as a contractor. So I'm bringing a pretty good realm of experience with me, but I'm proud to be a part of Deltona. It's a great place to work. We have a great group of people here. It's a great city, and I am also a resident.
Today we're going to take you through the customer experience of applying for a building permit. This is our organizational chart. It's 3/4 of it. Suzette is our direct manager. I am the customer service supervisor. I supervise 7 customer service representatives that include building and code compliance. And I also have an accounting technician who runs and balances all the cash that we receive. Do you want to talk about your structure? Talk about your structure. Your structure.
Sorry, that caught me off guard.
Sorry.
So as the building official, I'm responsible for the documents that get submitted, the inspections that get performed, as well as the planning, the plan review. We work kind of close together. There are requirements that are needed for zoning. There's requirements that are in for plan review. And my job is to see that the people that we have are properly qualified for that, as well as meeting the Florida Building Code regulations.
So the permitting timeline, there's about 5 steps from from the beginning to the end. The first, obviously, is to apply for a permit. There's 2 ways you can apply for a permit, both online and in person. The second step would be for our customer service representatives to intake and process, and then push it on to step 3 to plan review. Plan review, then the permits that require plan review, because not all do, they proceed to the plans examiner's queue, and they review for per state code, the building code, correct?
Correct.
And then once they've finished their review, it comes back to the customer service reps to then issue the permit to the applicants. The applicants then get their permit. They are allowed to proceed with construction. And then at closeout, our inspectors go out to ensure that they have indeed met the Florida Building Code and what they've submitted. And then we close out the permit. Skip the Line initiative, this is where we allow our customers to either go online and make an appointment to meet with the building department, or they can come into the department, sign into our queue, and they have the choice to either sign into permitting, business tax, code compliance, animal control, zoning, and solid waste.
And business tax, maybe?
Yes, business tax. So what you see here is roughly the last year of how many people have come into just the permitting department. And while you don't see a number, I can give you the number. It's 10,320 people. That's quite a bit. And with this Skip the Line initiative, it allows us to do a lot of different metrics. We can analyze our wait time. We can analyze our service duration. We can analyze how many people come into each queue. So to apply for a permit, after you sign into the queue list, our permitting team will then call you up to their window. We'll help you fill out whatever appropriate application is necessary. You can also you can also go online and apply for permits as well. They'll go into a queue for our same customer service reps to process.
So once that goes through the application process, the first step, it goes through zoning. Joe touched on quite a few of those items, but they will look at things like setbacks, drainage, easements, right-of-way use, septic. If you have a septic, that's kind of a big deal. If you have a drain field, you wouldn't want to put a shed on top of that. It could be a little bit of a problem. The plot plan versus a survey. The plot plan basically shows what you intend to put on the lot, where the survey gives kind of a detail specifically for the lot based on sizes and specifically what is existing on that lot. Go to the next slide. So after it goes through the zoning, it comes back to building. The photo here shows you the Florida building codes that would apply. There's quite a bit that goes into that. Predominantly, we do mostly residential, but many of these codes cross over between residential and commercial, and a lot of the requirements are very similar. Some of the items that do not require plan review, as we mentioned earlier, re-roof, an AC changeout if you're doing like for like, window and door, and again, like for like. So it's size for size. You're going to take an old one out and put a new one in. However, it would require plan review if you were going to modify an opening. Say you're going to take out a big door and make it a small door and a window. There's many things that go in into the criteria for plan review. So if we can go to the next slide. When we receive plans for a single family residence, there's a lot of items that we are required to look at. The building code regulates the minimum criteria. We do focus a lot on life safety. There are items that are required. For instance, your single-family residence, you're required to have one bathroom door that's ADA accessible. Safety glass, that's a huge, huge issue. It's noted in the code where hazardous locations are. A bathroom, if there's a door or a window that's close to a door, a large window that's close to the ground. And when it says safety glass, a lot of people say it's tempered, and tempered is one option, but safety glass, there's multiple ways that can be obtained. You can see there's a pretty good stack of plans in there that go to review. Some of these take a lot more time than others, smaller houses, or even the ones that are consistent. As you've seen in the new construction, a lot of the builders have the same house that they'll build repeatedly. So once you've seen them, you're pretty used to what's in there. But when you get the custom homes, the one-offs, the ones that are really large, it can take quite a bit of time just for doing the plan review.
And David, it seems like the flow of the incoming for your team and Kat's team on permitting can vary greatly. Like one day you came to me and you said, I just had 40 new houses dropped. How was that?
Well, that's a little overwhelming sometimes, but we try to come up and step up to the plate and share. We have one dedicated plan reviewer. I also do plan review, and the assistant building official, Carl, assists in plan review. So we kind of get together and we work as a team to get those things done. Some of these things too, there is a timeline that goes with them, and it can take quite a bit of time to do a single-family residence. But if we had, another item that came in that would need to be stepped up, we can always move those around as needed on an as-needed basis.
So again, as a permit comes in, Kat's team on the front end takes it in, they do their due diligence, they check for licensing and liability insurance and all that stuff. It goes into the review process, and then it ends back in Kat's shop, correct?
Correct. Once the permits have finished and gone through plan review, if they need the plan review, they come back to the customer service reps to then issue the permits. And this slide shows you how many permits we've issued over the last several years and our anticipated issuance for 2023. Back in 2020, we issued 8,638, and today, this year, we're estimating 12,306. It's quite a bit of an increase over the last couple of years.
So, Kat, when we came through those storms this last season, how did that impact your shop?
It impacted greatly. The amount of permits that came through were I don't know if they were, fences were being disrepaired, roofs had to be replaced, and even still today, roofs are still getting replaced because the insurance carriers are now just issuing, the insurance checks. And in addition to that, besides the storms, the insurance companies have changed because of the storms, and therefore now requiring additional paperwork from the customers to provide and get their insurance, either new insurance or renewed. So still, even though after the hurricane, we're still impacted by that.
And Kat, during that time, wasn't there like fee waivers if it was hurricane related? And
Yes.
Who determined that timeline?
The building official determined it, and the governor did as well.
Beautiful.
So once your permit application has been completed and approved, now it's officially issued, the inspection process begins. As you can see in the numbers, this year we're looking 36,000. Last year, 24. There's quite a few inspections that go. The inspection line, and I'll use a single-family residence because it really creates kind of like the baseline that would apply to almost everything. So one of the first inspections that we would do is underground plumbing. When they have the site plan established, they'll usually run either they'll string the line or put the form boards for the slab, and then the plumbing underground goes in place. That could be sometimes it's just drain, waste, and vent. Other times they will do water distribution lines underneath, and that gets inspected. After that's done, we move on to slab. Slab is probably one of the most confusing inspections because perception is, oh, it's a slab, I need to have it poured. The fact of the matter is it needs to be inspected prior to being poured because there's requirements that go in there as far as what the footer goes, your steel reinforcement, termite treatment, and a vapor barrier. So all that gets inspected prior to the slab being poured. After the slab gets poured, if it's a block house, we would go into the lintel. Lintel is another kind of a big deal of an inspection. All the blocks go in and you look at like Legos, they're all stacked up. But there's a number of things that the code requires that we have to do as inspectors. For example, the size of the joint between, we call it bed and head joints. The horizontal ones are bed, the vertical ones are head joints, and the code regulates the size of that. Can't be too big, can't be too small. They're also reinforced vertical cells. There's steel rebar that goes down into the footer, comes up through the block. Typically, it's on either side of an opening or every 8 feet, but that's all determined by an engineer. Then they have what's called the bond beam. At the very top, steel goes around all the way around the whole top, and it ties in, and then those cells all get filled with concrete. So window sizes, egress windows, this is the time to kind of catch that. So looking at the plans, you kind of have a good idea based on that opening size, if that window opening is going to meet the criteria for egress.
So Dave, if I can interrupt, please. So take us back to, what you just mentioned was very, very technical. So let's, in our minds, go back to that picture where you had all those books. Your staff that are inspectors that go out into the field, they have to have certain credentialing and testing, correct?
Correct. To become an inspector, you have to have, there's a number of criteria. Most popular, you have to have at least 4 years of experience in the field. You can also do what's called endorsement. If you were licensed in another state for at least 10 years, you can come to Florida and have them and do it by endorsement. There's educational background. If you have technical training and a little bit of experience in the field, they can issue a license that way. Cross-training is a big deal that's coming about now, and we need it because it's a difficult task to obtain licensure, whether you want to be an inspector, a plans examiner, or building official. For me to get my license, I had to demonstrate 10 years of experience, and 5 of those in a supervisory position. once you pass that part of it, then you've got to pass the tests. And some of those are very difficult. They're very, very challenging. And all those books that were in the picture, you don't have to know the books, but you have to know how to navigate the books. So having experience in there, knowing where it's at is the biggest part of it. You don't have to have them memorized. You just have to know where it's at to find it.
Right, and right now we've been months and months that we are looking for a plans examiner and a building inspector because of the technical and the requirements that are there. And as you remember a few weeks ago when we had housing in here, it took her about 5 years to fill one of her positions because it was so technical. So if anybody knows of a plans examiner or a building inspector, we're in the market.
Please let me know. Some of the other inspections, just to finish that list, and I'll keep it kind of short with there, but we would do roof and wall sheathing, roof dry-in, insulation, pre-power. You might have heard of pre-power inspection, you may not have, but basically, before we allow the house to be energized, we have to inspect that it's electrically safe. Then once the power goes on, then we do all of the final inspections. So now you've had all of your permits been issued, all of your inspections are done. Now you have the stack of paperwork and things. What do you do with that? It's a very good idea to keep all those records, keep everything together. You now have a record of your permit, your products that were used, and a big thing with that is warranty information. Usually people put these things in a box, kind of keep them on, but if you ever have an issue, you would be able to go back to those documents for reference.
So Dave, what is one of the biggest challenges for your part, and then I'll go to Kat as well. So in your part of the world with plans review, inspections, what's the biggest challenge?
Acquiring help, getting staff is probably our biggest challenge. And I would also say keeping up with technology. Technology advances so fast today. You know, I'm old school. I come from paper and pencil, and moving on to the electronics, there are so many programs and apps and services that are available. Keeping up with that is a big challenge.
Okay, Kat?
The influx of permits. So development is happening. So keeping up with the volume is one of our challenges. And it's a whole department challenge because once we intake the permit, now it goes to the plan review, and then it comes back to us. So the challenge, I think, would be that.
Okay. And as I keep talking about the tentacles, how everybody works together. Danny's group in code compliance here recently, as much as yesterday, we've been working on a property that we want to demolish. We have to work closely with the building department, and I think you took Carl out there with you to help look at the building, look at the property, look at the inspection. So again, we do this as a family, as a team. It's a big operation. So let's give these guys some questions. Come on, Scott, you got a question? How about Robert? Question? Come on. All right, think. I'm going to come back. Oh, go.
Okay. If you're replacing one utility in your house with the same utility, like a sink, for instance, you don't need a permit for that, right?
Typically, no. The guideline for that is if you're going to alter a water supply line or a drain line, that would require a permit. If you're going to just replace the fixture, just replace the sink. And there's a little rule of thumb if you don't disturb a trap, but that can even be a little bit of a gray area because you can move a trap, to accommodate a sink. Say, for example, if you had a single bowl sink and you wanted to put in a double bowl sink, you could make that trap where that could correctly drain, but you wouldn't be changing the pipes like in the wall.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Chaz, you had a question?
Yeah, I have questions. I'm a new homeowner, well, about 10 years now. I've never had a home before. So when I move in, I don't know anything about the house. I have no paperwork history. I don't know who did the roof, how big the septic tank is, any of that. How do I get that information? And is it possible to have that ready to give to somebody when they buy a house, so that you say, oh, here, welcome to Deltona, here's all the paperwork. You're going to need a roof in 2 years. You know, can that happen?
Yeah, one of the highly recommended things to do before you purchase the house is to have a home inspector come out. There is a big difference between a building inspector and a home inspector. But having that done, that can give you a really good evaluation of the current condition of your house. You can do record searches. All this information for permits is all public record. So you can research and see what permits were pulled. A lot of times you don't get to speak to the previous owner to get the history from in there. So the permit request, the records request for the permit's a good way to get dated information for what was done.
Right, and that takes us back to the day we talked to the city clerk, and she mentioned public records requests. So those public records requests would go to Kat. Tell us how you process those.
So the public records requests, they are documents for retention purposes, go back about 20 years. So if your house was built prior to that, then we won't have any information. The public records requests come through staff and myself. We then ship it up to the city clerk's office to enter into their database. And then it comes back down to me when I gather the documents and the information and bring it back up to the clerks, and they give it back out to the requester.
So some of that could be time consuming, but sometimes it's just a matter of a few documents and you get it up, right?
Certainly. If the property address only had one permit pulled, it takes about 5 minutes, not even. But if they had a multitude of permits throughout the course of time, it does take some time to pull all the documents.
So Chaz, it would be great if you did reach out to the city clerk's office and say, hey, I own this home, and I'd like all the records that went through the building department. They would provide it, and it'd be a great resource to have. And Dave and I had to filter a complaint through the city clerk or city manager's office this week in reference to somebody bought a new D.R. Horton home. They're very unhappy with it. And so our suggestion to them was, because once we've done our final inspections, we've issued the CO, they take possession of the property, we're out. So now it becomes a civil matter. So if Gigi owns this new home at D.R. Horton, she has issues with them, it becomes a civil matter. You need to look at your warranty deed information, pull your public records from the city, and then you proceed that way. We cannot intervene once we've issued that CO, correct?
That's correct. And on that, that's where I go back to the documents, because when that's all completed, usually in the kitchen drawer somewhere, there's a big stack of documents, and it has everything, for all the pertinent information for the products that were installed. It's important to read the contract agreement, with the warranties, whether if you have one on a new house, especially, to understand those terms and to know who to call and what to do, and the timeline. Many times they're specific. Just in general, a lot of times you'll get a 1-year bumper to bumper. That would pretty much cover everything. After that, you would have, say, 2 or 3 years on plumbing, electrical, the stuff that's in the walls, and then 10 years on structural. So understanding what that is and what's available is really important, because the timeline can get you. So it's understanding that is very, very crucial.
Very good. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You showed some interesting numbers about how many permits have come through in the last couple of years and how much it's probably skyrocketed. Do you have a sense of how many of those are tied to brand new construction and how many of those were actual repairs or additions to existing homes? Just kind of curious on that breakdown.
I do not have that off the top of my head, Troy, but I will definitely get it to you.
No, that's a good, and matter of fact, Kat, if you send it to me, I'll send it to the group.
Certainly.
That is a good question. And it's interesting, when Kat came in this week, I think it was this week, and said, we've had 10,000 people in our queue since, January?
I took a snapshot from Monday of this year to the June 18th of last year. So 10,320
in a year,
just for permitting.
Okay, just coming in, inquiring, and that kind of leads me into something I want to say, and we want to put it out there because we want the community to know. Right now, our hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We have this big, beautiful gate that comes down at 4:30, and what happens is oftentimes people are in, the gate goes down, staff has to continue to work. work and get their closeouts done and COs done and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so what we're doing is the city has a movement of some new hours starting January 3rd. The gate will go down at 4 o'clock. So please spread the word, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then from that 4 p.m. to 5 o'clock hour, the staff will have time to close out their business for the day. Tell us how beneficial that'll be, Kat.
So on July 3rd, when we close at 4, it's going to be super beneficial because all the permits that we haven't been able to address will get worked on, in addition to answering the phones that we have a struggle to do right now, in addition to returning voicemails to residents who have left, or contractors who have left messages with our team.
Absolutely. And what we're trying to do is continue to make sure that someone that is an emailer, a phone call, or an online permit is just as important as that person that walks to the front of the counter to say, I'm here, I need to be serviced. So we're working on really creating some new foundations to make sure our service is at the highest level for the community. Any other thoughts? Or, oh yes, one more, Troy, and then we'll wrap it up.
So a couple kind of dovetail questions. Do you have a concept of what is the most common permit people come in for that they may not need, or the vice versa of that? Is there something that people don't think they need a permit for that they actually do, like a fence repair of some kind or anything of that nature?
I know there's a lot of misconceptions regarding fences, so you do need a fence permit if you're going to replace more than 2 panels. Is that correct?
That's as it's current, but
right now,
as we stated, that's kind of under review.
Yes. The most common permit outside of single-family residential, I would have to say, is solar.
Solar by far.
So you're saying right now there's a movement where we are seeing a lot of solar permits submitted, reviewed, and put on the homes?
Correct.
What about commercial? Are we seeing solar for commercial?
I haven't seen much solar for commercial.
Okay. So
Yeah.
really residential uses for pools or for whole homes, or what are you seeing?
For
Whole
both.
homes.
Yeah, but mainly whole homes, but we do see it for, heating the pools too.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, the building department works extremely hard. We thank you, and if we could, give them a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Great job, guys. So what, do you want to break or you want to move right into HR? Keep moving? All right, I like to keep moving too. So, okay, so HR, human resources. What's human resources?
Human resources? Human resources is the department that I think takes care of the employees in their business, or in this instance, the city. So the people who work for the city are taken care of by human resources, make sure they're getting their benefits and paychecks and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask somebody. I'm going to ask Zachary. Zachary, what do you think human resources is?
I think that it is basically what she said it as well. It is basically the city's. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
I always put you on the spot.
It's the city's employee manager, basically. Managing benefits. It's managing basically back-end stuff when it comes to employee.
Okay. I think that's a great thing. And again, here we go. So we have open positions in the departments that I have the pleasure of working with. I have to work with this staff like daily. They're like, oh, here she comes. So I try to make visits to their office because, and I think Rebecca will probably mention this, one little thing with an employee or a new hire or a termination or something takes a long time, and it takes a lot of processing. And so I think you're going to be real excited to hear what Human Resources has to offer. Welcome, Rebecca. Welcome, Denise. Welcome, Lynn. Welcome, Stephanie. And I think Seth has been with us how long?
2 months.
2 months. So as you can see, and you've heard from Mr. Chisholm several weeks ago, new teams are being built. We had Jonathan here from the planning department that's new. So welcome, Rebecca, and I'll let you take it over.
Thank you. Just a few questions about, is this mic working?
Yeah.
Or
you can pull it out of there and hold it.
How do I use this?
We do need to talk into the microphone because it is recorded, so they should be live. Yeah, they're live.
Okay. Can I move this one?
You can do anything you need.
Hold on to it in case you ask any questions. I'll pass it.
Great. Sorry, I didn't get an advance tutorial on operating the equipment. But good morning to all of you. My name is Rebecca Wilk, and I'm the Human Resources Director for the City of Deltona. I've been here since 2005, and it's a pleasure to serve the community. I have a great staff. Some individuals have been here for a while and worked in different departments. Some are new to us, but not new to the profession in which they've been assigned here for the city. So I do want to start out with giving you all the opportunity to also hear a little bit about our staff, because we do work together as a team. Each one of us has different responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. Some of those cross over. There's times when we have to work together and kind of problem solve and figure out how to reprioritize things based upon whatever comes our way each and every day, which is definitely sometimes a surprise. So I just want to take a second to let everyone else do a brief introduction for you too.
Hi, good morning. The
Hold the
microphone's
red
off.
button in.
Let me try over here.
Good morning. My name is Denise. I am the admin assistant for the Human Resources Department. I am currently the one who posts the positions. I answer any of the incoming calls for all of the employees, residents as well. Just in general, recruitment. If there's a vacancy in our department, the departments will meet with me so that I can send the requisition out so we make sure that the position gets filled. We also post the openings on different websites. We do a lot of employee information updates. It's a whole lot, and we do a lot of it as a team as well.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lynn, and I'm the Human Resources Clerk, and I assist Denise with a lot of the recruiting as far as once the candidates are selected by the departments, scheduling interviews, getting them through the pre-hire process, and then passing them on through orientation.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie. I am the risk manager. I handle our insurance for the city. I handle the claims that we transfer over to our third-party administrator. And I also handle CDLs to make sure everybody has their background and everything is clear for them. And I assist the department whatever I need to. And I try to make sure that if you have a problem, I'm going to try to help you figure out how we can get it fixed. Even if it's not my issue, I'll try to find out who can help us, because that's our job, to serve you.
Good morning. My name is Seth Weaver, and I'm the HR analyst here at the City of Deltona, which is a bit of a jack of all trades kind of a job. So I deal with onboarding folks after Denise and Lynn have put them through the hiring process. So when they come into orientation and they're getting brought into the organization officially, I assist with that. I get them signed up for their benefits, their retirement plans, all that sort of thing. I also help people exit, which I'm going to be doing as soon as I get out of here, because we've got a longtime employee who's retiring, and I'm going to be meeting with her as soon as I get done with this. Deal with folks' insurance, their own personal insurance that applies to their medical, their dental, their vision, all of their family members. If they're going to add those folks, we also handle that. So that comes to me. That's really the bigger part of it. Also, there's another portion called FMLA. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but that is a legal structure from the federal level that protects people at their job when they have to be out for a medical reason. So we process that for them to make sure that their job is protected, so that when they're out, we know why, and they can come back with all of those kind of protections that have been put in place for them, so that they can make sure that they're secure. Back to you.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and jump in with the presentation. I did want to start off, though, with some misconceptions about human resources. A lot of times you hear that everyone says, human resources, that's the department that hires and fires employees. No, we don't. don't. We actually work alongside with other departments. What happens is if there is a disciplinary issue, then a lot of times the department will bring that to our attention. We work alongside with them to help them kind of review policy and see what type of disciplinary action may need to be taken. And then our role also shifts into doing investigations. So sometimes there's things that maybe a complaint that comes in from citizens, and we need to look into that and get both sides of the story. Because, you know, if you just work on the surface and you don't take the time to dig a little bit deeper, sometimes you just really don't have a full understanding of what the situation is. So we do investigations, and if it does turn out that it is a disciplinary action, maybe something that requires suspension or separation, there are opportunities for employees to have a hearing in which they can present their side, and then ultimately the final decision about the status of the employee falls back to the city manager. That's at his discretion. Same thing with the hiring. So the hiring, a lot of times I get calls about, you know, how do I get into the city? We have a system, WorkBright, that's out on the city's website that lists all of our current vacancies, and an applicant can apply in there, and then what happens is that those applications are forwarded over to the department. The department is really the subject matter expert on who is the best qualified for their positions, because they're, you know, and they're training and developing, and like you heard earlier from the building department, the building official knows what types of things that it is that are going to be required of that individual and what kind of licenses and certifications are going to be necessary. So once they make that, then we kind of jump in and we start our process. So in here, I've listed a few different responsibilities that fall within the realm of our department, primarily being recruitment. So as Denise had mentioned earlier, we have position requisitions. So every year when the budget's finalized, that's where we have a clear understanding on the positions that have been budgeted for that upcoming fiscal year. And we have a requisition form that goes around to authorize the replacement of an individual, whether they've been promoted, separated, it's a new position coming into the budget. This is how we keep track of all of those occurrences. Then those vacancies get posted externally, as Denise also mentioned. They go out on WorkBright, as well as we advertise, you know, with different types of professional organizations, depending upon the position and where we think that the recruitment efforts will be best utilized. As we move through the scheduling of the interviews, which Lynn works with the departments to do, and the selections are made, they come back to us. And then that's when we reach out to the pre-hires. We let them know that they've been selected as the top candidate, and then we move forward with the process of screening them. So the screening can be pretty extensive, because we do a level 2 criminal background screening for all employees, and that's just something to protect, you know, the residents and the rest of the community, and make sure that we have people with no issues in that area. We review their driving license records. You know, that's also another important thing, is that we want to make sure that there are no issues that we could come about with that. If they're a CDL driver, then they have a special physical that they have to go to. That's something that's federally mandated. That's just to make sure that, you know, they can safely be out operating this heavy equipment, and not really having medical concerns that could interfere with their ability to do that. Then we move them through the background process into the orientation, and then that's when Seth comes in, meets with them individually. We spend a few hours with them, kind of going over all of the initial paperwork, making sure that they're aware of what the policies and procedures are, as well as going over the benefits and any questions that they may have about that. That's usually an important decision for them to make. You know, adding dependents, when they can have qualifying events, kind of go over all of those things. And then while those processes are going on with recruitment, we obviously have a whole lot of other things going on at the same time. So during that time, we're processing promotions, demotions, transfers, reclassifications, salary adjustments, anything from W-4 changes, anyone that's changing their address. If we have garnishments that come in, we have to make sure that we're compliant with that. qualifying events. Someone has a spouse and they have employment and they now have new insurance available to them. We're processing all of those types of things and administering things like family medical leave and also the city's return to work process. So family medical leave, as Seth had mentioned earlier, is an important benefit for employees. There are times, unfortunately, when employees find themselves in a serious medical situation in which they really need to not be focused so much on their employment at that time, because what's really important to them is taking care of themselves and getting better. So that's what this law is there for, and we're there to make sure that these employees have the ability to utilize that and that it's managed properly and that it's recorded and documented along the way. So we spend a lot of time doing that.
Rebecca, could I jump in?
Sure.
So as you guys can see, there's so much that goes on there. What I want to ask Rebecca is, when COVID hit, how did that also impact your world? Because now you have all this stuff that you do traditionally, and now COVID's here, and now we have to kind of jump in and look at how do we deal with policy, how do we deal with workspace. Would you share us a little bit of that journey?
I was afraid you were going to mention that word.
Oh, so you were ready.
And it's actually on one of my other slides. So COVID obviously was devastating. It was something that nobody was really prepared for. And there was a lot of different legislation that was coming down. The Families First Coronavirus Act was something that was implemented on a federal level. We as city employees were all emergency essential. So we were here, we were reporting, and we were trying to figure out how we could do that safely. So it's also difficult, and something that our department experiences quite often is, trying to find the balance between, okay, we can all admit there's two sides of COVID. There's people who are like, no, I'm not worried about that. I think it's ridiculous. Some people don't believe in it at all. It's a made-up type of thing. And then you have the other group of individuals that are like, oh my gosh, what is this going to mean for me? And what is this going to mean for my family? Does this mean that I'm going to end up, passing away or experiencing that from another family member? So being in the middle of that as a department, trying to balance out the two, was extremely difficult, because you can never please everyone, because you have people that are coming from different, backgrounds, situations, and that's information that maybe they're not even comfortable with sharing, and they shouldn't have to, because they do have those protections as well inside of the organization. So it was a huge challenge, but I think that we did a fabulous job. I mean, I don't normally compliment myself, but we really did a great job, because we had to break down all that federal law. We had to look at, what is it that they're requiring? There was all kinds of things for people who had children that in daycares, and, not being able to send their children to daycares and being able to take this time. So we had to come up with a complete process of how this is going to look for the organization, as well as also trying to manage the potential for abuse, because, there is always two sides to that. So we had to create a fitness for duty process in some cases where we had individuals who maybe contracted COVID, and, making sure that we had them cleared so that they could come back into the workplace and not have to be of concern to other individuals that would have to be working alongside with them. And we had to put in a mask mandate, which not everybody liked. I mean, we didn't necessarily like to have to wear a mask all the time either. Everybody kind of treated us like we were the COVID police, which is not something that we wanted to be. But yeah, it definitely was a struggle, and because it is covered under FMLA, the volume of FMLA requests and management and the time tracking that went into all of that was a extreme stress upon our department. So I'm just very happy to see that, that word isn't spoken as much anymore, and I hope that we can continue to stay on the path kind of away from that, moving away from it. But it was difficult.
Thank
definitely.
you.
So another responsibility that we have is the insurance. The city's insurance, health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, voluntary supplemental insurance, those are all things that we handle the renewals for. I just received an email yesterday that we're planning now to review our claims, because our claims do directly impact what our premiums are going to be. So the city also does participate in a wellness program, and we manage that and we sponsor that through our carrier. That wellness program is something something that is what I consider to be a vital effort for us to kind of keep people informed on how to stay well. We do on-site biometric screenings for employees, so they are able to come in, and Quest through the carrier comes and provides a biometric screening, which includes a blood draw. They do the weight, and all of that information is then sent back to the employee so that they know their numbers, and if they see any kind of areas of concern, they can go directly into their provider and kind of have that discussion so that they can be working towards improving their health and improving their lifestyle. And they get rewarded for that. Those things, those funds for the rewards come from, the carrier policy, because they as well see the value in, if people are paying attention to their health issues, they're addressing them, managing them, and trying to improve upon them, then the claims go down. And so that's a win-win for all of us. So we spend a lot of time doing that. We deal with workers' compensation when employees are injured, not just filing the claim, but then managing the claim. Sometimes they can come back with restrictions. We have to coordinate that with the department. Other times, they have to be out completely, and we have to work with the department to figure out how they're going to fill that gap if they have someone that's going to be out for a period of time. We deal with property damage claims, residents calling in, there's been an issue, then that goes over to Stephanie, as she mentioned before. We file that with our carrier. Another misconception is a lot of times people think that we have some sort of control over the outcome of those situations, which we do not. They go over to a carrier. It's just like if you have damage to your home and you call your insurance company, they're going to assign you an adjuster, and you're going to work back and forth with the adjuster answering questions, but ultimately the insurance company is going to make a determination as to what the outcome is of that claim. So we can't always answer questions when it relates to that, because there's also the potential for litigation and things. So that type of questions that come our way really have to just be diverted back to the carrier. We manage the DOT program, as I mentioned earlier. Stephanie is the one that records all of the medical certifications. They have to go through a process of getting certified. Oh, I forgot to move to the next slide. I apologize. So they have a process to get certified, and then they have every year, sometimes every 3 months, they go back and they get rechecked to make sure that there are no medical issues. We're also required by law to conduct random drug testing. So we work with Advent Health Centricare to schedule those services. They come on site and they do the randoms. They're the ones that make the selections for the randoms. And if we have any issues with that, then obviously our department would deal with them accordingly. The other primary thing that we do is we deal with employee-related issues, like I mentioned, investigations, hearings. Those are things that are not always the most glamorous parts of what we do, but they are necessary so that we can keep this as a productive, efficient workplace. We manage classifications, compensation studies. That's basically where you may have a position that needs to evolve into something else, more responsibilities are coming about, or the city has additional needs. So we work alongside with the departments to determine what is the requirements for that, how should the job description change, is there a compensation issue that needs to be adjusted as well. We support employees with their retirement plans. The city is an FRS employer, so there is a mandatory 3% contribution that all employees must make into the Florida retirement system. But they do have the opportunity, and we encourage them to participate in voluntary retirement benefit options. So we have 2 providers nationwide and Mission Square, and we also bring those providers in on site occasionally so the employees have the opportunity to plan for their financial future and to become knowledgeable about what that means for them and what their needs may be in the future. We manage the recognition program as well. That includes something called shout-outs. So we allow employees to have the opportunity to acknowledge their coworkers for things that they do that are really above and beyond. We also get a lot of those that come in from residents where they see someone out in the field doing something good, and they take it upon themselves to call in and to let the department know, which is really such a big thing. I wish that everyone would understand the impact that that has. Sometimes you hear a lot of negativity, on the outside, and that can really bring down morale internally. And so when an employee does get that acknowledgement from the outside, I mean, it's just tenfold, something that really makes their day and makes them feel like everything that they come in to do is being acknowledged and recognized. The next slide is our organizational chart. This is how we are set up organizationally at this time. We have some vacancies, and we've had vacancies over this past probably like 2 fiscal years now, either one position or the other. And that has been a challenge for us because we still have the same amount of demands that we have to keep up with regardless of our staffing levels. So we are currently in the recruitment phase for a deputy director. That's going to be one of the higher level positions. It kind of is what's considered to be a human resources generalist. They have to kind of have knowledge above all levels. So we deal with federal law, we deal with city policy. They have to have a very good, strong background in all those areas: retirement, recruitment, etc. So if you do know anyone, please send them our way. We love to fill vacancies. Accomplishments, as Suzette had mentioned earlier, I had that listed as one of them was the COVID-19 initiative that was taken on by our department. In addition to that, we have been streamlining our processes for the various job fairs that have occurred. So I don't know if any of you attended, but we had the job fair in 2021, and then we had one recently in 2023. And we tried to, change up the way in which we perform the recruitment to kind of make that process a little bit faster. And I think it's worked out very well, and we've had a lot of positive feedback from that. The city also has a defensive driving program. That's something that is required by our insurance carrier. We get a discount for doing that. So we have on-site trainers that teach defensive driving, which is important because, as all of you know, out there driving these days, it's a little crazy. Nobody uses a signal anymore. Stop signs are kind of like yield signs. And then we also recently implemented the firefighter rehabilitation program with Advent Health. So our firefighters go through a very rigorous physical every year. That's one that's compliant with the NFPA standards. And if they run into any issues, if they have an area where they need to have a little bit of improvement, we've been able to get into a relationship with Advent Health for them to have someone who can coach them through that process so that they can successfully get to where they need to be and be able to get back out there serving the community. We, as part of, and I mentioned it earlier, we do the on-site screenings for the health and wellness program, and we have that coming up again here in August. Will be the next time that we run that program. Next we have some key performance measures. So I think this is what a lot of people are interested in, is kind of like, what are the numbers? What is it that we do? So as you can see, I put up last fiscal year the actual amount of received items or processed items, and then a comparison of where we are today. So job applications, to date, we've received 3,034 applications. So some people might say, well, then why do you have all those vacancies? So with everything that you bring in, there's a pro and a con to it. So we used to process applications, paper applications, and that was just a whole process of recording and shuffling them around. So then we went to an automated system, which, is a wonderful improvement. It's a very easy system to use, but when you go in and you create an application, you can save that application, and that means that sometimes we have a lot of people that just because they have that saved application, they'll apply it to all kinds of positions. And they're positions where they really don't necessarily meet the minimum qualifications for the position, but they just figure, hey, why not throw it out there? And so it isn't always helpful to the departments because sometimes they're reviewing an enormous amount of applicants, but yet they're only finding that they may have 100 applications that they're reviewing, but there's really only maybe 10 to 15 that actually even meet the minimum qualifications for the job. So that can be a little discouraging, but overall, I think it's definitely an improvement that we have this automated system available for people to apply. position requisitions processed. When we spoke a little bit earlier, Denise mentioned how, she handles those requisitions. We went from 111 to 133 this year. So a big component in that increase is going to be the fact that in one of the previous fiscal years, when there was discussions about the budget, there was a decision to freeze a lot of positions. Well, then going into this next fiscal year, there was a decision to unfreeze those positions, or circumstances had changed in a department to where that recruitment was now an essential function for them. So there has been an increase in requisitions, positions posted and being filled. Then the number of positions filled has gone from 123 to currently at 86. So I think we're pretty much kind of going to stay on target with that. And that consists of new hires and promotions. One thing that I can say that I'm really happy to report on is the fact that this is the second fiscal year where I've seen a huge increase in the number of promotions, internal opportunities that are being made available to current employees. And that has a tremendous amount of value because, really ideally, what you should want is you should want to be able to see where an organization brings people in and they grow them from the bottom to the top, because each one of those levels, they're just continuing to gain additional knowledge that they'll be able to continue to pass on to new people that are coming in. And that's what we see a lot of happening right now, which is a very positive thing. Separations, we were at 60 for last year. We're at 46 for this year. It looks like a high number to some people, but, the unemployment market right now, it's very low. So people are doing a lot of that, changing back and forth. Let me throw my hat out there. Let me see if I can get another job. Let me see if I can get a little bit more money. Can't really blame anybody for doing that. And as a result, it does continue to affect our department, because each person that goes out, then we start our process all over again, trying to bring someone in. Approved FMLA request, that is currently at 35. So I figured that we'll be a little higher than we were last fiscal year. There is a lot of maintenance that goes into that. We do not currently have an automated system. The system that is used for payroll processing does not have the functionality that we need to track that type of leave. So we have to do that on a manual basis. So it's literally collecting the timesheets from the department, using a tracking sheet, marking off on each one of those, and then recording it in a spreadsheet. So that's definitely one of our goals for this next fiscal year, is to find some sort of system that somehow will integrate with the system that's currently being used, but will provide a higher level of service to our department, because right now we're just not getting that out of the systems that are available. Workers' compensation claims, we're at 16 right now. That's always a good thing. We never want to see people, out there getting hurt or injured. We have a lot of safety programs. We have on-site people in various departments that take the initiative to do safety training. Some of them over in the Public Works Department actually do the safety training. They call it tailgate training, where they'll cover different subjects and ways in which you can make sure that you're doing everything that you need to do daily safely. Then auto property liability claims, we're at 24. That's probably going to be a little bit higher than last fiscal year. That's just kind of the nature of what's happening out in the world with litigation and people filing claims. So I see that to be pretty much within the normal range. And so with that, that completes the highlights of the different things that our department does.
So we have a question back here with Chaz.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a couple questions. How many employees are with Deltona? I forgot that fire department was employed. So how many do you have overall?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because I forgot I had some stats I wanted to go over too. So we currently have 366 employees. Of those 366 employees, 200 of them are actually Deltona residents. So I think that that's a huge thing, because I hear a lot of times people say, well, what the residents, well, I mean, it's great to have people that internally are here, because we have the same goals and the same ideas and the same expectations that a lot of you all have. And on the flip side of that, also being here the amount of time that I have, I've also come to find that even if somebody works here but does not live live here, I think they're just equally as dedicated because they just come in with that kind of work ethic that regardless of who it is that they're serving, that they're going to serve them at the highest level possible. Then we have and I want to get to the rest of the questions, but I want to highlight these things. You mentioned the fire service. We have a number of employees that have been here for a tremendous amount of years. As of right now, we have 31 employees with over 20 years of service, which is phenomenal. As of today, 27 of those employees are at that level, and of those, 6 are from the fire district. So before the city was even incorporated in 1995, there was a fire district that was serving Deltona, and that district still was, well, when it was brought over, it still kept on those employees, and today we have 6 of them that were from the original fire district. And from Florida Water, before the city purchased Deltona Water, we have 6 employees that have been serving Deltona through Florida Water for all these years. So that's kind of a little bit of the demographics of what our how many employees we have.
Is the mayor and the city manager, even though the mayor's elected, is he still considered an employee?
I take him out of the count. Technically, he's in our processing system because, you know, they get a small amount of compensation for the work that they do. And so they're in that system, but I back them out because they're not truly employees. They're elected officials.
So you do not do background checks on elected officials like the commissioners or anything?
No, because that's all just through the election process.
Because whenever the newspaper has a story about this one's a problem and that one, why don't they go to human resources?
Yeah.
Why don't they just listen to HR, you know? But now I know why, because you guys aren't in charge of them.
Right. I'm so glad you asked that.
So let me, I don't know if I heard the full answer. The city manager is a city employee, correct?
He's a city employee, but he's a charter officer, and same as the city attorney. And they are not vetted through human resources. So elected officials, contract employees do not get vetted through human resources. And it's been that way since I've been here.
Okay, does that help, Chaz?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how about some other questions? Okay, then I'm going to ask Stephanie, in the world of risk management, biggest challenge? You got to talk in the mic because we're being recorded.
The biggest challenge is insurance, making sure we have coverage. As you know, your homeowner's insurance has increased, so our insurance is going to increase. How many lawsuits we have, that would increase our insurance. How many claims we have, that would increase our insurance. So we try to keep the claims down. We try to make sure that we investigated both sides to see exactly what happened, or if the city was at fault, because I don't want to give away Deltona's money. You know, some people, their job is to sue, and my job is to stop them, you know, to figure out, is this legitimate? Did you actually, were you even at the location? You know, do we have proof that we were at fault? Or you're just saying this? Or did you, you know, you just want a vacation?
So on that note, so do you go out to different areas to do investigations?
I have. I've been here 6 months. 6 months will be in July, but I've been called out through the water department to come out, but I have a lot of people in different departments that support me. Like the parks department, they give me videos so I can support, okay, this is a claim where somebody did something to the park, and I need to show it to the police officers to show, hey, they damaged our equipment, we want our money back. I'm good about going for my money, for the city's money. I like to go and get the money. I'm like, what do I need to do to get the money? Whatever I need to do, because I don't believe that you should pay people that, you know, that don't need to be paid.
Okay. What is your credentialing or your educational background to be able to do your job?
I'm initially from Hillsborough County. I'm from Tampa. I've worked in Hillsborough County. I worked to the bus station called Hart. I did claims, auto claims, property damage claims, work comp claims there. And then I went to Hillsborough County Risk Management. I was under the Board of County Commissioners there for about 3 years. And then I transferred to the Performing Arts Center I wanted something different. I wanted to learn something different. And then COVID hit. And then once COVID hit, if you can't send somebody in the theater, you don't have a job. So after then, I did a little side business, and now I'm here in lovely Deltona. I'm learning.
So going back to what I'm thinking of is you have a lot of experience with insurance and things of that you brought to us here at Deltona to help us run our risk management division.
Yes.
Beautiful. That's thanks. How about Seth? I'm going to pick on Seth for a minute. He's been here.
All right, let's
He's
go.
been here a whole
What do you
2
got for
months.
me?
He's been here 2 months. I think he came from the county of Volusia.
I did, yeah.
Aha.
Yeah.
See, I do listen. Why did you come to Deltona, and why are you doing the human resource analyst job? Why did you make that your selection?
So this is actually a pretty easy answer for me. There's a big difference between being at a larger organization and one that is a bit smaller. And one of those differences has to do with the way in which you can learn new things. So where I was at the county, I was dealing with benefits only, which is plenty when you're at the county. But it means that everybody over there has a more specific role. Okay, but when you come to an organization that's a little bit smaller, you've got to cross-train and learn more roles because we don't have as much staff to do all those same tasks, because the city has to do the same tasks that the county does, but with less staff. So that means when I got here, I had additional responsibilities that I would have had to transition into a completely different job at the county in order to learn. I would have had to do all kinds of just lateral moves that wouldn't have necessarily helped me until much further down the road. So coming here is actually a whole different challenge, and it's one of the main reasons I did come here, was to further my career, to learn things that I otherwise probably wouldn't have been exposed to. So, yeah, that's why I'm here.
That's beautiful. Questions? Oh, here we go, Troy.
Thanks. You mentioned that you're looking forward to some new tools to help you with some of your software that's not kind of doing what you wanted to do. Is there other things that you're looking for? We've heard in the community that we still have like paper time cards and a lot of manual paper processes, and is that something that we're looking at moving forward, or do we prefer that for some reason?
Yes, we are looking into that, and it's not something that's brand new. We've looked at it a lot of times throughout the years, but the main system that we use, which I think I don't speak IT language at all, but I think we're now calling it the ERP system. Don't ask me what that means, but to me, I call it like our financial system, our processing system. And the struggle that I have after all these years, I've been working with that program since I came here. And when I came here, there's no guidebook. You can't just go and open up a manual and say, okay, this is how you do what it is that you need to do. So everything is kind of like somebody passing it on to you, you reaching out to support. They have documents that you'll read through. And as you're reading through the document, it's like, well, we don't use it that way, or we have it set up in a different way. And an example of that would be just like, what was that, last week or the week before? The finance department helped us by setting up a training, because Seth is new and Denise has been here a long time, but she's doing some new things. We have this vacancy, so when that vacancy happens, it's like, okay, well, how are we going to deal with all the things that still have to happen? So I need everyone to kind of pitch in on that. So I said, let me bring a trainer in and spend the time with this trainer and with the staff, which took us completely out of the office, away from all of our responsibilities, emails, phone calls for an entire day. Let's sit there and tell this person, okay, I need them to be able to do this type of process, this one, and this one, because these are common things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis that have a payroll deadline and an employee expectation. So we sat in that meeting, and as the meeting starts, okay, they're telling us go here, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, no, we don't use that like that. So it would be hard for me to explain everything that went down, but they are my witnesses that by the end of that meeting, I was just about to explode. I said to them, I looked at them and I said, what did we learn today? What thing did we learn? Which I think I felt like we learned one thing, which was how to clean up our vacancy report that wasn't working correctly, but it's extremely frustrating. This is not an HR software program. And as far as the timesheets go, the finance department spent an extensive extensive amount of time last year trying to work with an implementer, I think is what they called it, to try to use some software that was supposed to be compatible with this ERP system that we're currently using. And I mean, they just had one problem after the next. It's not because we don't want things to change around here. It's sometimes the things that we're having to work with that are kind of preventing us from being able to do that. And tasks such as that, it goes far beyond just, you can't just flip a switch and say, okay, now we don't have to use a paper timesheet anymore. You know, if we could, that would be great. And we definitely want to see that happen. And we've dedicated ourselves to finance, telling them that, you know, whatever it is that they need, we were not able to support them either in the capacity that they probably needed back when they were looking into this, because of different things that we had going on in our department between volume, vacancies, high levels of recruitment, job fairs. So in all fairness, you know, it takes a little bit of a village to move those types of things, but it's still on the radar and something that we're hoping to implement, you know, somewhere in the near future.
Okay, I think Steph has something, and then we're going to get ready to close.
I just want to add to what Rebecca's saying there. If you think back to when you guys were looking at the building inspection, permitting, and all that, if you notice the giant jump in those permits, it was like over 4,000 more, right? And that's just where we're at this point. So, you know, trying to keep up with that kind of growth is difficult. So, you know, you have a system that was in place that could keep pace, and then you get to a place where you have exponential growth like Deltona has had. This is the biggest city in this county now. I don't know if y'all know that, but Deltona is the biggest city in Volusia, and it's one of the biggest by population in all of Central Florida. So this is a big place, you know, and so we're trying to keep up with that pace, and it's a challenge.
It is a challenge, and I thank you, Seth. And I just want to say I think you guys are the heartbeat of this organization, because we couldn't do without you. So we thank you, and let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.
All right. And thank you all for coming and taking this time. It means a lot to us to see that other people truly do care about learning more about what each and every department does here. And, you know, so I can't thank you anymore. And I'm sure the staff does as well.
All right. Well,
we're always here if you have other questions.
We appreciate you, and I'm sure I'll be up in the office before the day's end. So, okay.
You know you will be.
So here we go. So we are going to wrap it up, and I know we're getting close to our time, and I never want to run over on our time, but I would like for you to please look at the agenda. Next week, we are not here. We're at Dewey Booster, and then we are then going over to 551 Cortland Boulevard, which is a public works facility. We're not here to if anybody wants to talk to me on the side, if they can't make it, let me know. I will be there, and I'll send you an email like I've been doing after each class. I'll try to, I might even take a picture of what the part, if I can find a picture. I may not give you a picture. We'll see. But when you get into Dewey Booster and the parking lot, there's a playground, and behind the playground, there's a stage. That's where we're going. Does everybody know where the stage is? Maybe? Yes?
But there's a playground on the left.
Okay.
As we're going in, but that's not in the park. There's another playground in the park. Some people are like, oh, this is the playground.
Okay.
So
it's a big playground and then the stage.
The playground on the left,
right.
As you're coming in.
Okay.
And then you're going into the park, and there's another playground. So
does that help? I hope. But I'll be there. I drive a big truck. You'll see that. I'll be there. But there's a stage there. That's where they're going to set us up. We're going to do a little activity on the playground. We're nothing physical, but I don't want to steal his thunder. Mark Manny is our director of parks and recreation, so we're going to meet with him, and then we'll leave. I'll have you a snack bag in case you need a snack on the way over to Public Works, and then we'll meet at Public Works. And then the last session will be back here. We'll be back here, and we'll have our Volusia County Sheriff, and we will have our fire chief. So we're really excited, and then we're going to end with kind of static display in the parking lot with some vehicles. So as you can see, I do have a few empty chairs of some people that just did not show up. So if somebody has a friend that wants to join us for the last 2 sessions, either email me or tell me before we leave, please bring them, because there's 4 empty chairs. I'd love to fill those chairs. If somebody has a friend, a dad or a mom or somebody they want to bring, please see me so that I can make sure that I accommodate for them, but I'd love to have them. I thank you guys for being here. Yes, Connie?
There were several people that applied but didn't get in.
I have one. I'm going to call her. I only have one that I had on a waiting list, so I will reach her, but I did not have anybody else on a waiting list. But if somebody knows somebody, just see me before you leave, because I would love to have them here. 4 empty seats, okay?
I don't know right now, but
I'm so sorry, Chaz.
I'm sorry, are we meeting in the rain next week if it rains?
If it's raining, that's a good point. It's not going to rain because I live in positive. I don't have a contingency plan. Let's meet there, because if it's raining, then we may head straight to Public Works and have Mark go with us to Public Works and have us talk there. We will be in a building in Public Works. So thank you. I appreciate that. I was not thinking about that. You guys have a beautiful week. I'll see you at Dewey Booster, and I'm so grateful you're here. Have a good day.